What up? I'm Katie Shasky. Welcome to Maintaining Velocity. My podcast, my new podcast, Maintaining Velocity. I almost said spirituality with muscle and I had to restart this whole podcast. But here we are. So today's discussion, you're welcome to stay if you are a divine masculine or just a masculine or a dude, you know. I know I have a very severe spike and increase in my male listeners, but this I lean towards making content for divine feminine embodiment quite often. It's not my main thing. I mainly do tarot and astrology and esoterics and spiritual mastery and ways to level up, get incremental changes, loving yourself, all these things, self care, good practices, good habits. I talk about all these things all the time, but when it comes to divine femininity, it's something that's very near and dear and close to my sensitive little heart. Not just because I am a born woman, I was born that way, but I had a unique experience growing up where my mother decided I was the man of the house once my father left. He left us on Valentine's Day, and then right after that, she decided I was the boy, the man of the house. So, um, with that being pressed on me, she was pretty adamant about it. Like, so, and if being girly for me was not praised. It was when I was expressing my masculinity, being boyish, wearing boyish things. I shaved my head growing up, and that was celebrated inside my house, but it scared my grandparents. You know what I mean? Um, my poor grandparents. I wound up getting married when I was 18, which also freaked them out, and they didn't get to come to my wedding. I eloped in Vegas, and things played out the way they played out. But I'm really sorry I disappointed my grandfather over that. But that's really besides the point here. Gathering back my thoughts. So divine femininity, like in my marriage, um, we had a dynamic where my masculinity was the driver of the relationship. It was pretty constant, and he was. I'm sorry for if I made the microphone scratch. Felt like it was slipping on my. I had it clipped in my bralette. It wasn't. He was rooted in his wounded feminine, and it's not his fault. All right, like we were young when we got married. We were 18, really, really young. I don't know what his life is like now. I know that just the bare minimum. I know he still lives in Washington State. But he's definitely got his own thing going on. I got my own thing. I hope he's been working on his polarities and his healing, and I wish him well. But I can only talk about my experience, my side of the fence. Some of these episodes are going to be covering that relationship, but they will be paid episodes. There will be things I can't afford to have censored through the regular channels, like, through Spotify, whatever. That's why I have it on Substack to begin with. That's why I'm hosting it here. I want to be able to speak about sensitive subjects that I've lived through without having to use euphemisms to make the algorithm happy. So I absolutely will not be minimizing these traumatic events, or sometimes they're funny events, but you really just don't want it to be censored. There's many different things that and reasons why one wouldn't want to be censored. So not every episode will be paid. There will just be highlights, very sensitive materials that will have a very small overhead once they get created. So that being said, the divine feminine topic for me has come from a deep wounding, a survival mode, constant survival mode, and I think I've only been able to unravel that tension for myself in the last how long have I been? I've been celibate for six and some change, 6 years and some change. But really, since 2022, I think it has been where I've been doing my major work on staying in my divine feminine energy, and it takes a lot of practice. I'm used to, especially when I'm around men. That's what I really get tested is when I'm talking to somebody that I really, really, really like, that I have a lot of affection for. It doesn't really matter the type of affection; it's just affection. But I understand that my energy is rather large, and I'm very direct about that. There's never any mincing of whether I like somebody or not, but it's definitely not like that for everybody. And anyway, I don't know. My I'm very very forward when it comes to how I communicate. And I know there's a lot, I have to educate myself a lot on how divine feminines communicate. You know, there is like, am I a black cat or am I a white dove person today? Like, there's all these animal, influences that we talk about. I've been classically a black cat type. I'm demisexual, sapiosexual. I like a connection and a mental meaning. I have a big intellectual streak. I think a lot. I'm a reader. I like information, and I want somebody to meet me there. So it's difficult to have relationships with any other person on this planet of Earth if you're not making friends. And this is my whole point of this whole thing today with divine feminine embodiment. Your subconscious rules everything. It rules your perception. It colors everything in your entire experience in your world. If the world is mental, you create it as you go, then these things all connect, right? Your subconscious colors everything. And if you're not friends with your subconscious, the whole world looks a lot scarier than it might otherwise. So when we're talking about being a divine feminine, we have cycles that we experience. We are women. We have moon times. We have, the beginning of our cycle, the follicular phase, the ovulation, the luteal, and the beginning of the menstrual cycle all over again. We have these 4 seasons within a month that we go through. And the expectation is that we maintain a solid mood, a solid productivity, a solid energy throughout the month. And some women can. Some women have the right build to push themselves at that level. Other women have certain other types of hormonal makeups, and their bodies are designed to do other things. Their personalities are designed to do other things. Everybody has their strong suits. So I want to say this: there is no perfect way to express your divine femininity. You have to really seek within and find out what that is for you, how it aligns with your health, how it aligns with your cycles, and exactly what your physical body needs, what your spiritual body needs. No two women run exactly identical. No two women run identically. Biologically, we get similar, but we're not the same. So that being said, what is the same is how studies have shown that women's brains do alter during the menstrual cycle. The gray matter itself changes form, shape, and density. Therefore, the brain cannot possibly operate the same way as it would at any other phase of the month. This can cause distortions of the mind, panics, survival mode, wild mood swings that are contributed to being in your one from one pole to the next, masculine or feminine, wounded feminine, healed feminine, wounded masculine, healed masculine, in fear, in rest and relaxation. It really depends on how you take care of yourself, how self-aware you are, and your habits, whether or not you're supporting yourself or undermining yourself. There's can be waves and waves of big emotion. These waves of emotion used to scare the absolute crap out of me, and they were so what I perceived to be uncontrollable that I would drink during this period of time, during my period. That was my main way of handling it because I was not doing deep dives into my femininity. I was too afraid to really look at it because expressing my femininity to me felt dangerous, right? Or something to be ashamed of. My softness was something I didn't embrace. My what I perceived to be feminine weakness was not something I embraced. I did not know what was wrong with me for the longest time. Eventually, I was diagnosed with endometriosis, which means once a month. It's not just a period. It means I have whole body. Basically, I bleed out all over my body. I have internal bleeding in places where I shouldn't because I have endometrial cells in random parts of my body. So I have more body pain than other women can get. And I was always talking about how much I hurt during my period, and they would often make fun of me, and I never felt safe to express my emotions. My mother didn't like me expressing my feelings anyway because she needed to see me be a masculine depiction around the house. So my strength was in my silence. So it just shakes down, and then I've read so many different times that when you have a lineage of poor relationships with your mother, and then she has a poor relationship with her mother, it affects your genes, your genetic code. This is epigenetics. It changes your epigenetic code when you have traumatic experiences of any kind, but in particular you have a lineage of rough relationships through the feminine, you will start to see things manifest in autoimmune conditions such as PCOS and endometriosis and very many other kinds of, you know, in estrogen based and endocrine based illnesses. You'll see insulin resistance, you'll see hirsutism. There's so many different things that is connected with spiritual misalignment that come into your physical body, especially just as a woman that I live through, that I deal with on a daily basis. A lot of my self-care on a daily basis is all built around my cycle. I think about it every single day with whatever I put in my mouth, the teas I drink, the blends I make, the amount of caffeine I have a day, if I even have caffeine. Sometimes I don't. I have been a lot lately. But you have to, here's the thing about making friends with your subconscious. These are things you have to do when you're awake. Same thing with becoming friends with your menstrual cycle, especially if it's particularly painful. You have to do these things when you're not on your period. So you have to allow these light and dark, light and dark, light and dark, constant contrast, dancing back and forth. And you realize as when you're leaning into your femininity, there is this state of allowance is super fucking gangster. Allowing yourself to be disciplined about rest and relaxation is gangster. You have to allow that because the whole world is pressuring you to do the other way of living. And it might not be right for your body, but your assignment is to listen to your physical. Otherwise, you won't be able to be there as a mother, a wife, a spiritual leader, whatever your role is in life. Maybe you're a lawyer. Whatever it is, you have a role to play. Maybe you're an electrician. Maybe you do concrete. Maybe you're a cop. Maybe you work in like the tax industry. You might be in a male driven force or field. You might be a waitress and you are on your feet all the time. Go, 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 go. I don't know what your deal is. But when you really have to cultivate, and when you block off time to rest and relax, you have to defend it often, defend it to your life and justify it to people who won't understand it. So it's a very, very gangster thing to start doing, is to decide how you treat your body in relation to your period. Now, same thing with your subconscious, right? You have to start protecting that. Maybe that means you change the way you listen to music. I had to protect my subconscious by not listening to metal anymore. Certain types of metal music was making me unhealthy mentally. It's just something about the beat. It made my heart go into places that reminded me of, survival mode, and it put me there sympathetically. So I can't dwell there very very much. So I listen to a lot of R&B. It's just the same as I don't listen to familiar music very often if I can manage it. I try to listen to new music. I don't want to listen to a bunch of music that would remind me of the last dude I was talking to. You know what I mean? Like, whatever the case is, I don't want to be dwelling in old energy as much as possible. I'd rather be learning something new, experiencing a new wave of living. We only have so many minutes on this planet of Earth of being alive, and you say you have a 4-minute song. How many times do you need to hear 50 Cent sing "Go Shorty, It's Your Birthday"? Like, in your entire lifetime. Once or twice is enough. So I'm constantly changing the station. I'm finding something to grow my mind, listening to a podcast, new book, whatever. I really, really care about what I feed into my subconscious in the first place. Then I mind my thoughts every single day. I make sure that I am paying attention to what I put attention on. And that takes a lot of practice, a lot of practice, a lot of focus. I also make decisions based on if this is somebody who loves themselves would do. Like, any action, is this a loving act, and is this something that somebody who loves themselves would do? Is this a deep down loving act? Is this in alignment? Is this going towards my goals? Is this building towards something? Or am I deviating from it? Am I going to be proud of myself? Is this along with my values? I'm constantly thinking about these things so that when I lay my head on my pillow at night and I fall asleep, I won't wake up in the middle of the night at 3 a.m. and be having regrets. Regret does creep up on me at night. 3 a.m. My body will wake me up, and I understand that this is a cortisol issue. I know how it works, but I'm also a very sensitive spiritual woman, and they call this the witching hour. And I know that God speaks to us early in the morning. It says so in the scriptures. So I allow these things to be a part of my life without judging them, but I plan around them to make sure that I am doing everything in my power to not be eaten alive by my own brain. I don't want to be sitting there thinking in shame or feeling in shame, because my gray matter is distorted, especially around this time of month. So it's really a personal responsibility thing about watching, especially what you put in your mouth. Alcohol and sugar are going to exacerbate your ability to think around your anxiety. It might even make it worse. The occurrences might be a lot more acute when they do show up, more life or death feeling than just something you can observe and sort of dismiss comically. You really have to get disciplined about your mind in the regular state to be able to deal with it in a distorted gray matter state when you're on your period. So you really have to work on that. You have to feed yourself whatever it takes to make yourself feel secure, provided for. Especially if you're single, you can't let things slide. So being a woman is extremely difficult as it is, but this is I felt like, really, really centering on this today. I am on my period right now. I didn't want to make this episode today, but it didn't feel forced either. I just felt like I was dragging my feet for no reason. But I got to get going. I have a spray tan. I got work here pretty soon. But so I guess what is my whole ending of this? So you got to be your own best friend. Last night, I put my arms around myself in bed and hugged myself and said, Katie, I love you. I'm going to take care of you. It's going to be okay. When I woke up in the middle of the night. And it felt so good. I know I love me. I'm down for me. I choose me. I got my own back. And if that's something you're working on cultivating, maybe you want to have a reading. Maybe you want to get some advice about how to get out of this deep, deep, deep hole of self-hatred that you find yourself in. And if that's you and you need to climb out of that shit and stop some shitty habits where you're hurting your body and doing self-destructive shit, I've pulled myself out of some really dark places. I'm a good person to talk to about this, but I'm not the only person to talk to about this. I just want you to talk to somebody about this. Go to my website, suigenerousregenerate.com. There's some links. We can talk. You can send me an email. We can get started consulting about getting you seen. I have a little something for everybody. Okay, so I'm really passionate about this subject. We'll come back again, but divine feminine embodiment is very nuanced. There's a lot to it. And like I said, there's no perfect or imperfect way to do it. My version of divine femininity includes unconditional love with a sword, good boundaries, compassion, softness, nurturing. And it includes a this and more attitude instead of this and that or this or that. Everything is inclusive here. We integrate, we don't segregate. I don't judge. I understand everything. Everything is connected. So we sit here being real ass people, having real ass ups and downs, real ass trauma that we have to work through. And we get the privilege of getting to work through this together while we're alive on this planet. And the other day, somebody said something and it really stuck with me. There are so many cemeteries on this planet filled with potential that never got used. And don't let that be you. Don't let yourself get stuck in these lack mindsets, these habits that fuck you up. We can talk about it and start getting your wheels turning in a different direction. That's what I'm good at. I'm really good at making sure people think outside of their box. That's how I live. So, anyways, I love you guys. Thank you for listening. This is going to be a really great podcast series, I can tell. We're going to get some really deep, deep, deep episodes as we go. But as it is, we're going to leave it here for now. I will speak to you again very shortly. So much love. Bye for now.